Honestly, I had not connected those dots. I was so innocent. And I remember feeling so violated. I was so mortified. I went in, I started crying. I went to the bathroom. I changed back into my culottes. Culottes, look that up. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Family Business with the Alessis. I am Mary Alessi, and I have the ginormous privilege to be in the podcast booth with my husband of 36 years, the Reverend, I'm joking, Steve Alessi.
Yes.
We're in this room together today. We have something really cool we want to talk about.
Yep.
And I just want to say this right off the bat to get some of the formalities out of the way. We have some incredible merch, which is t-shirts, hoodies, hats, really cool stuff, coasters. And if you like our podcast, we hope you do, please help us move some of this merch. We don't have a lot of it left, but we do have some. And here's the best part. It is now linked to our YouTube page. So if you're listening to this, watching this, all you have to do is click the link and it will take you right to all the product page where you could just put the size in you want and order it. Hey, it's great stocking stuffers. And you've got what, like 10 months to figure it out? I'm just saying, I've always got Christmas on the brain. Yeah. Get ahead of the game. Buy some of this family business podcast merch. And I love that it advertises the family. So if you're about family, wear one of these shirts. Family is everybody's business. And where we are today in our culture, we really need to start focusing on our families.
Yeah. When somebody asks you about what is the family business, tell them about the podcast.
It's the podcast, and it's helping you, and it's making your family better.
Well, I got a bad habit.
What?
This is one of those habits I thought I would try to resolve in the new year, but I'm not doing too good.
What is it?
Biting my lip.
Yes, you do that.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
More and more.
Is it a nervous thing? Are you focusing on something?
It just feels good. Grab a little piece of that on the inside.
Don't.
Pull it right off.
Yeah, but then you're going to have problems later.
I'll bet you a lot of people listening to our podcast right now are sitting there biting their lip. And when I brought that to their attention, they're like, my gosh.
Yes, me too.
Because all of us that bite our lip are saying, we got to stop.
Yeah. I bit my nails for years, so I don't bite them anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
You did when we were married.
I was nervous.
You were nervous before we got married, and then I got that. I healed you of that.
Oh,
brought
you
peace,
did it. Okay.
Tranquility. Mary, you introed our program today because you have a great subject that you think we should be talking about. And so let me do a little groundwork here.
Go for it.
We're talking about vision this particular year.
Yeah.
How important it is to our lives to have not just a New Year's resolution, but vision.
Vision.
And vision is what you see yourself being in the future.
Right.
Could be a year. I'm not a 5-year guy, but recently I've started thinking in terms of 5 years from now, what do I want my life to look like? Start to lay that out. Start to, like a puzzle, put the sides of it together, the end pieces all together, and start figuring out how you're going to fit that in. What do you want your relationship with your spouse to look like? What do you want your relationship with your kids, your friends? What do you want your career, your money, all that, your health? You start to lay that out because you are in control of your tomorrow. You really are. So we're talking about that, having a vision for yourself, but you had a thought that would run right in line that if you're going to have a vision for yourself and your family, then part of that vision should include this. Take it away.
What is the culture of your family?
Yeah.
What is not just the vision that you have, you wish your family looked like, you would like for your family to look like? What is the everyday culture? What do you know as a mom, maybe you're a single mom or even a single dad, there's a lot of singles out there, a lot of our listeners are single. Could you sit back and say, even without a spouse in your life, you are setting this culture? We are a family that eats together, or we're a family that affirms one another, or we're a family that not your earthly culture, meaning your lineage, oh, well, we're Cuban or we're Italian.
Right.
Yes, that's obviously, you have those cultures. But what is the culture behind the walls of your home from the morning when you wake up to the evening that you can say is part of the culture or is the culture of your family. And it doesn't have to be something so huge, but it needs to be something that your children can point back to and say, in my home, my dad always required this.
Yeah.
I know in our home, our kids will tell you as they're all raised, but we still got 2 that live at home now, and they're young adults, that you were always extremely on top of them about neatness. Very much like the culture of our home. You try to do the 1-touch rule, which is very hard, folks, but it helps tremendously. It brings all the anxiety down and the stress levels down. But it, like the kitchen sink, don't leave anything in the kitchen sink overnight. Wash it, dry it, put it away. I never thought of that as part of the culture of our home. It was a nuisance for me because you would get upset and it would bother the girls. And I'm like, I'll just do it. We have somebody coming to clean. But you would make that part of your rules. Like every night, girls, we are not pigs. We've spent a lot of money in this home and we're going to value this home. And this house needs to look clean all the time. All those things were true. Now that they're young adults, 2 of them have their own homes. They're living by that same rule just automatically. That culture of cleanliness and tidiness benefits their own marriages. And here's what it does. It's brought down the temperature of their own young marriages because one of the things that creates chaos is who's the messy one, who's the clean one. Now, that's just one example.
Right.
But there's many examples along the way of us raising our kids that we have set a culture of that today we couldn't do what we do without it.
Yeah. You know, you say it, and the thought about that being part of a vision for my life is important.
Sure.
And some people don't even think about it because every home does have a culture.
Yeah.
And if you don't set the culture, I bet you culture's setting the culture.
It will.
And that's a culture that you may want in your home where you will allow the outside influence of that worldly culture, more carnal culture, to be the culture of your home.
Yeah.
But you should be able to set that. You should be thinking like there's 2 kinds of people. There's people that set the temperature like a thermostat, or there's people that gauge the temperature like a thermometer.
Right.
And what is that in your home? Are you a thermometer kind of person where all you do is just kind of react to what the environment is? Or are you the thermostat person that says, no, we're setting the temperature to this, that fan's on, and it's going to be cool, and it's going to create this environment.
And don't touch it.
For our family.
That's right.
When you start thinking in terms of, let me set the culture, let my spouse and I, my kids and I, we're going to set a culture in our home.
Yes.
That you're acting like the thermostat, not the thermometer.
And it might be, which is, I hope everybody pulled over and wrote that down because that's it right there. That's what culture means. You set it in motion and you work every day to set that culture consistently every day.
Yeah.
Some people have come out of families where the culture was screaming, yelling, loud, always dramatic. Mom and dad were always contentious. And when they got married, they said, I will not take that into my home. Our culture, the culture of my family and my wife and I, we're going to be peaceful. We're going to talk things out. And that's important, to not take bad culture and bad habits from maybe the way you were raised into your family. And some people don't even know they can do that because what we've learned becomes automatic. It just comes out of us. But you can make a decision. No disrespect, mom and dad, but that's not the culture that I want for my family moving forward. And we're going to have a covenant we sign with one another. We're going to talk things out. Now, that does not mean that getting upset and yelling once in a while means you've ruined your culture. We're all human. That's very, very normal. I came from a family where they never yelled, never talked about issues. We did communicate. My father was a brilliant communicator. And yet at the end of the day, he was a closeted alcoholic who was always trying to suppress his feelings and suppress conflict.
And humor was used.
Humor
to
and
stay away from the issues.
And teasing.
He would sweep.
Used.
when we were newly married, we'd always have this kind of debate, which was really an argument.
Yeah.
I'd say, no, you'd say, you're so loud. You guys yell.
Guys just yell. You don't, yeah.
And I'd say, yeah, but you guys are quiet and you just sweep it all under the carpet.
Which we did. And
that was a culture in your family.
It was what I thought, because I was a peacekeeper, that was a healthy culture. It was not a healthy culture, because there was never any ability to really speak truth in love or otherwise. You couldn't speak it at all.
Yeah.
And my mother certainly tried, because she is, if anybody that knows my mom, she is a truth caller outer.
Yeah.
She does not mess around, but she wasn't able to do that with my dad, and their marriage ended in divorce. But what I loved about my mom, even after the divorce, she did not let that affect what we believed and the culture of our relationship with her.
Yeah.
And that's the point. It's really your belief system that you're going to set in motion for your family. This is who we are. This is what we do. As for me and my house, this is who we are. Your family, yes, they were Italian and your mom was Irish and they were more hot-blooded, and they went through things too. They went through very difficult marriage crises like mine did, but they survived it.
Yeah.
And that was such a huge aha moment for me, where I took pride in thinking, oh, my parents never fought, and we were so calm, and we were all so more in our heads, and we could have a decent conversation and really work it out, but we never really worked it out. It never, ever, ever got resolved. So the culture of my family, although there was a culture of singing, we were singers, you know, and there was a culture of funniness. Our family was super funny, and they still are.
Yeah.
My dad's in heaven, but a lot of him still lives on in that culture that he set that was healthy.
Yeah.
But that was one very unhealthy cultural strand.
Yeah.
That led to their divorce, that we said, my sisters and I, we will not take that.
Yeah.
This and this and this, we're going to take the humor, the fun, the music, those types of things.
Yeah.
But that ain't coming with us.
Well, that culture ultimately is what took his life.
It took his life.
Because he had this secret thing going on with drugs and behind the, the scenes, and nobody knew it, and it was really tough.
Yeah, he was in a lot of pain.
Here's an example of somebody wanting to set culture, and this just happened. I heard it last night while I was at my counseling session with the guys. He was saying to me, and he's one of the leaders here of the church, he was saying, Pastor, I listened to the podcast where you and your pastor friend Steve Hage were talking about offense, and you were talking, coming at it from a man's perspective. And he says, I took my daughters to school after hearing that, and I made them listen to that podcast.
Wow.
He says, here's why. Because they were starting to buy into this aggressive male image as being
abusive.
Yes. Okay.
It's terrible.
Putting the strong man down and
down with the patriarchy,
and embrace the feminized man.
Yeah. Yes.
The one that, would sit down and play tea party with the girls and how precious that was, and the whole Barbie syndrome that's out there, that here man's got to take a back seat to the glitz and the glamour of the
Ken,
pink Barbie. And so he was having a problem with that, because anytime he would get a little strong with someone in the family, the daughters would become protective and defensive of that.
Right.
That they didn't want him being that strong. And I told him, listen, I got it, because you're living with girls. I'm living with girls right now. And if you're not careful, the hormones of all of that could neuter you as a man.
So true.
Because you're operating afraid that they're going to be hurt at you and mad at you, and then they don't understand that an aggressive man, as even I'm talking, getting a little aggressive man is the good thing.
Right.
Not abusive.
No.
Aggressive.
But aggressive is not
aggressive. Is strong.
Right.
Embrace that strength.
Right.
Don't be abusive with your words or with your behavior. All right. So he's saying, I'm trying to show them, no, this is what Real men do. So he made them listen to that podcast.
Good for him.
To show them, no, this is how men think.
Yes.
What was he doing? He's making sure he's setting the thermostat.
That's it.
The culture of the home is going to be, we understand a man's role as the strength and strong leader that he should be. And we understand the woman's role as someone who is just as strong,
that's right,
but is strong in her place and he's strong in his place.
That's it.
And he's setting the culture. That needs to be part of your vision plan. It may not happen this month, may not happen this year. But if you start working on what you feel are the good, healthy, I would even say righteous actions of the family, you put those in place, and over the next 5 years, you'll start to see this is a culture that is set in our home.
And the reason that dad needs to do that is because those girls are going to want and need an aggressive husband, a strong leading husband. And that's what I think as family, we don't always understand. And we lose sight along the way that those cultures help create an expectation in our kids for what they're looking for, what our daughters are looking for in their future and what our sons are looking for in their future.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of cultures out there. India's culture, gosh, a lot of them. I'm not going to keep naming countries, but where they prearrange marriages and the families work together to raise their daughters and raise their sons, knowing that they will one day be prearranged. They might know each other growing up because the community is so strong and so tight. They're preserving that culture. And what they have found is, Steve, and I've watched a movie, it's on Netflix, and it's amazing, is that the marriage rate, well, let's put it this way, the divorce rate is almost nil in their culture.
Why?
Because they have vetted, prearranged, raised their kids with an understanding and an honor of that culture.
Yeah.
That even if they got married and they weren't like totally head over heels in love with each other, they became in love with one another and their marriages lasted.
Yeah.
Because they were raised with the same values and the same culture.
Huge.
And you and I both know that once all the hormones wear off and the honeymoon's gone, what makes you fall in love with each other more? When I really started to truly understand that I loved you, wasn't even the day we got married. It was knowing when we started having kids that you had not only the same values, you were going to lead in that area. Culturally setting the home where our kids were going to go to church, no ifs, ands, or buts. We had the same value system about dating. So many things that lined up because our parents had raised us with the culture of church is not an option. Just that helped us so tremendously. So even though we weren't prearranged, we kind of were in some ways when our parents knew each other and hoped that it would get together. The point is, and we did, they manipulated a tiny bit, but anyway, we did find each other and we fell in love more and deeper as we started taking those same cultural values, the ones that mattered, not the yelling or not yelling, but the ones that really mattered, that we were able to springboard off of, carry, because we saw them work with us. We were the testimonies that works. That we are the evidence that culture works in our family, and we are going to apply that. And what made our marriage so much stronger is we were on the same page about that.
Mary, you're probably making an argument in a case that is backed up by statistics. I'll bet you there are more marriages staying together that share the common values.
They are.
That ultimately become the culture of the home.
I agree.
That's glue.
Yeah, it's glue.
Because, coming together, marriage, that's not easy. This is very challenging. It's two streams. Yeah. If you've ever seen two streams be joined into one, you see how violent it is, how much water oversprays and just splashes.
It fights.
And what a mess it is. Yeah. That's what marriage is. When you bring two people together, something's got to keep them together.
Right.
And it's most of the time, it's cultural values that they've been able to embrace.
That's right.
Now, my sister, Darlene, she married Robin Rivera. Robin had a Puerto Rican culture that he was raised in. Darlene had more of an Italian-American culture that she was raised in. What was interesting, and I believe this happens pretty much played out more so than we realize, is one partner takes on the culture of the other.
Right.
And most of the time, the woman will take on the culture of the husband because she wants to please the husband. And how do you please the husband? Through the stomach.
Sure.
So my sister Darlene, when it comes times to cook, she most of the time will cook food that Robin has been raised in his Puerto Rican culture. Mm-hmm. That right there has become part of their home. That's just the food aspect of it.
Right.
So that pleases him. When he's pleased, it's a happy home. That just shows the power of knowing your culture.
That's
and being able to agree on what the culture of your home is going to be like. What you don't want is the mixture of all these different things that you see happening in society, and you're not able to say, this is the one that we will abide by in our home, this attitude, this belief, this lifestyle, this is what we're going to believe in, and we're going to emphasize in our home.
Right.
And the other, that's for somebody else. It's like when I was growing up and I had this buddy down the street, David Stein. David Stein always would travel with his parents and they'd go to places, and I'd go over and say to my mom and dad, listen, can I go to so-and-so with David? No, you can't. Why? Because you can't. I don't want you to. And I'd say, but David's able to do it. Mm-hmm. David's father lets him do it.
Right.
And my dad and mom would always say, well, then go to David and let David's father be your father. But I'm not your father. And in my home,
that's right.
This is how we act. This is what we do. And so
that's right.
It's setting culture. It's healthy for your kids. If you're a parent.
That's right.
It's healthy for you to set the culture. A lot of people, though, in our society are letting the kids set the culture in the home.
Well, that is becoming a norm that is way more outrageous than we even realize, even amongst Christians who believe that we're counterculture, right? We're seeing it within our churches, within our young people, young girls. Gabby and I did a podcast that you'll hear about the TikTok craze that's going on, 10 and 11-year-old girls that are in Sephora buying makeup. And the culture of our home was, you're not wearing makeup right now.
Yeah.
And
at what age did we let them start?
Oh, maybe 13, 14. And then just lip gloss and a little bit of mascara. But then they hated it.
Yeah.
They hated makeup. But the problem with not having a game plan and a culture, this is what we want to raise our children under. As for our family, this is what we do. What you leave your children open to is anything will do. Mm-hmm. And then you're fighting little fires every single day. And you haven't begun to fight until you fight a middle schooler. And then your next big war is going to be a teenager. Mm-hmm. So when you set it young and set it early and have those conversations, hey, your friends might wear makeup, but we're not doing that. You have to be a certain age. That is not even a negotiable. It is a non-negotiable. Why? I don't understand. Because you will when you get there. This is the culture of our home. And if everybody endorses that culture, you're going to have harmony with each other, maybe not so much with your kids, but that's normal.
Yeah.
Where you don't want conflict is that mom and dad can't get on the same page.
Yeah.
That's so important. Oh. But you're going to struggle with your children over the culture of your home. Go ahead.
Tell the story about your jeans, the first time you wore jeans.
Oh, I was in 8th grade.
What happened?
Still mortified.
You weren't able to wear them?
No, my dad was really strict about wearing Levi tight, straight jeans. Yes, we had those back in the early 80s. Levi's, and girls would wear them. They'd buy a size smaller to wear them really tight, and then white T-shirts and white tennis shoes. And I remember, man, I wanted to wear those jeans so bad. And my mom had bought me a pair, and they weren't even tight at all. I don't even know what I thought. I had like the body of a 12-year-old boy, but in my mind, I looked great. And I remember in my school, the bell would ring. You had to be out front. Everybody was in the schoolyard. The bell would ring, and then everyone together would run up the front steps and into the classrooms. And as I'm running up the steps in my new jeans, because what I did was
there you go.
I dressed one way at home.
To go to school. And then when I got there early, I changed really quick and I put those jeans on. Now, the whole time, my twin sister, Martha, who was such a goody two shoes, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to see God's going to get you. You were just obeying mom and dad. And I just did not understand the gravity of it. It was just jeans and I wanted to look cool and fit in. And as I'm running up the stairs, some other high schooler, probably younger than me, grabs my rear end.
And before that, I never thought anyone could even see my behind. That no one, it was invisible to everyone. And it wasn't even in top of mind that I wanted anybody to see it. Those dots weren't even connected. It was just jeans. I wanted to look like my girlfriends. I wasn't even thinking that this got boys' attention. Honestly, I had not connected those dots. I was so innocent. And I remember feeling so violated. I was so mortified. I went in, I started crying. I went to the bathroom. I changed back into my culottes. Culottes, look that up. And my dad had just been no baggy jeans, no baggy jeans, no baggy jeans. And man, it stayed with me for more reasons than not just all men are pigs.
Yeah.
That's not what I got out of it. What I got out of it was I wanted to honor my mom and dad, and I wanted to be obedient. And I saw how in a split second, not staying within the culture and the confines of protection of my home could set me up for something I wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
And I never wore those pants again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in your home, there was a culture that was set.
That's right.
About dress.
Yeah.
And some of our homes need to embrace that today because too many parents are letting kids dress the wrong way too young.
Yes.
And most of the time, parent is feeling pressured from the outside. So again, that's that whole thing. You let the outside culture create a culture in your home.
Yeah.
That's not how it should be.
Right.
You got to set the culture that hopefully will allow your kids to combat the stuff that's in culture outside of your home, because that stuff outside of our home, as we're seeing more and more, is unhealthy. And I think if we would, as a parent, sit down, have a cup of coffee, pull out your laptop, your phone, get into your notes, and just start to write down 10 things that are valuable to you, that are healthy, that makes you happy, makes you secure. And if you look at those things like, acceptance of, where everybody's at in their stage of life, acceptance meaning, hey, I may be good at this area of my life, and maybe I'm not that good at this area. I may be good in math, but, maybe my English isn't that great. You know what? Okay, I'm going to work with the strengths.
Yes.
A culture working with your kids' strengths and accepting those strengths and not having to compare them against one another or someone else. That should be something that is in the home. In our home, I look at all 4 of our kids' strengths, and I'm thankful that each of them have strengths. And I want them to know that's what we're going to emphasize with you.
That's right.
Is your strength, because they're going to be happier when they're being affirmed rather than constantly being corrected.
Yeah.
Or not so much corrected, because a parent has to be there to correct the
yes.
kid, but comparing them to other students or other kids.
And they
or
feel
other
they just feel criticized.
They don't know their place. Their righteous behavior that we as a church, as Christians, we believe in. There's certain things that, hey, in our home, we just don't cuss.
Yeah.
Hey, out of the same mouth cannot come blessings and curse. We just don't do it.
Right.
Does one slip every so often when we're telling a joke or something? Yeah. But I'm not walking around dropping F-bombs.
No.
We just don't talk that way. It's just rude. It's dishonoring.
Yeah.
Please, we spent too much on your education for you to speak like that.
No.
Choose better words.
That's right.
We don't do that. When it comes to hitting a girl, I always told Chris, in our home, we just don't hit women. Mm-mm. That's all that's to it. Keep your hands to yourself. Actually, with Chris, I always told him, Chris, talk your way out of a fight. Don't bow up and think you got to fight your way out of a fight. That was a culture that we were creating to be able to be the bigger person in the moment.
Right.
And turn the other cheek. And it's always best to turn the other cheek because you can live another day. And that's things like that we held on to. You talk about our girls with their makeup. Wasn't going to happen when they were too young. Yeah. We didn't want them getting the wrong attention. Which is, parents need to be aware of their kids' social media pages, because what those kids are doing and posting, they're setting a culture of their lifestyle and behavior.
Yeah. And let me say this just quickly. If we parent, looking back now, when you parent with the messaging that I'm not letting you do this because other people, you're prey. Girls don't believe that. They're just too innocent too. Boys don't either. And one of the things that we talked about in this other episode is tell your girls no with makeup because acne, because it's a pain. You're going to have to be wearing makeup a long, long time. And it's not always about someone that might victimize you. This is a personal value that you need to have for yourself, because we're dealing in a time now, the things we say yes to in this culture. Now, cell phones, social media, everything you just hit, it is exacerbated and ramped up what could create so many insecurities in our children because they are comparing. So now setting the culture of no cell phones at the table, no cell phones after a certain time, all cell phones come in a room. That's part of the culture within the culture we're in. No makeup right now because you don't need it. It's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. And it's more about, I want to create a messaging within our family. And we did this. It's about us. It's not always about somebody that's going to come and get you. It's about us as a family. We're building the values I'm trying to instill in you, son, in you, daughter. That's why you're not going to hit your sister. This is a bigger thing than you realize.
Yeah.
Under our roof, this is how the Gomez's do things, the Martinez's do things. This is who we are. This is our family banner, and it's over the outside of our home. And when they leave that home, they take all that with them.
Yep. I've seen people create a Star Wars culture in their home. It's like everything's Star Wars. You got your kid that's got Star Wars posters all over their room, and they got the characters, and
every movie that comes out, the first one, absolutely.
That's like creating a culture for Star Wars. Yeah. Well, what do you want your culture to look like? Yep. What do you want your kids to carry on? Which is one of the reasons why grandparents are so important. Having your grandparents come around quite a bit. Your grandparents can help you. Your parents can help you point out some things that aren't healthy that they even saw in their generation.
Right.
And they can help a parent say, hey, that's not good to allow to seep into your home.
Right.
Hey, growing up, Mary, 11 o'clock I had to be in the house.
Yeah.
When I was a stinking senior in high school. Even when I moved out, went to college and came back home, during the week, it was 11. On the weekend, it was 12.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad used to always say, my mom in particular, nothing good ever happens after midnight, son.
It's true.
And to this day, I sit there and say to my girls, I know they want to stay out late, but like,
you just pass that right on.
No.
Nothing good ever happens.
In our home, you're an adult, but in our home, you got to be home at a certain time.
And it's rules that you've created in your home around.
Excuse me, I just sneezed.
No sneezing in our home.
Go.
No sneezing. But it's rules that aren't positioned as rules. They're, as for me and my house, in our house, this is what we do. It doesn't have to be phrased as what we aren't allowed to do and what we don't do. It should be phrased a little bit more creatively. That's what culture is. What we get to do because we're Alessis, or what we get to do because we're Pauls. You know, and I'm using names of people in the studio. That's the beautiful part of it. Even as a single mother, you don't have to give up the dream of having a culture for you and your son, or you and your two daughters, because the husband, their father's not in the home. You can have a culture within your home. The most beautiful thing that is music to your ears is when you hear your kids say, Mom, you always taught us. Mm-hmm. And it's something good. That's of value that they are using all their days in their marriages and raising their kids. Don't forfeit that because you've been divorced.
All right. You started this great podcast off. Why don't you bring it home?
I'm not good at closing.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. And
I could have done that.
We hope you enjoyed our culture creating podcast here with the Family Business with the Alessis. Thanks for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, and click on the notifications bell so you can be notified for all of our future videos. And if you loved today's topic, we have plenty more. And you can click on this link right here to watch all of our videos so you can learn why family is everybody's business.